Greetings, Darklings, from across the interwebs. It is once again I, the Duchess, Precious Ken. Thank you for joining us. Happy holidays. And I have with me my compatriot.
It's Collin Skipper. I don't have a good nickname. I didn't think of anything.
You weren't ready on this one?
I wasn't ready.
But you put it into your look, and you look amazing.
Well, thank you.
So this interview and episode is brought to us by Archdiocese Guitars. They don't pay us, but we pay ourselves because it's Collin. Collin, would you like to show us the latest guitar that you're working on?
We have a whole slew here today, but the newest one that I'm quite excited about.
This is so fucking dope.
We have a replacement for my Bass 6, which it's a tooled leather-topped Bass 6 guitar with humbuckers. Very different design. Very excited about this. Hoping to be making more of these in the future, so hit me up.
If you need a guitar, you will not get a cooler, more original one at the price as if you reach out to Collin. Okay. We are extremely excited. We have as always, we always have the best guests, but we have a wonderful guest with us, Matt, of the bands both Caustic, Klack, and because it's kind of industrial music, about 47 other bands at any given moment, because that's how industrial music is done, or any kind of EDM.
Just a bunch of friends hanging out.
Matt, a pleasure to have you with us. Hello.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I read in the book of like how to increase your viewership is to butter up the guest first. So I'm doing that asshole thing where I'm wearing the shirt of the band, and this hasn't been released yet. So be excited for this, Matt. But
Okay.
I am about to release the Sounds and Shadows top albums of 2020 industrial EDM EBM version, and you are the only one that appears twice on this list for this year, for both Klack and for Caustic. So
nice. Well, thank you in advance.
Yeah, little massage to get the interview going, get us on the right.
I consider me buttered.
Sure.
It's not that hard to do, to be honest, but thank you for buttering me. It's been a while.
That's,
I haven't had many hugs outside of my own family, so this is a little butter, and that kind of works on me today.
You can always count on me to butter a man. Like
I appreciate the butters.
Matt, why don't you start out? Tell me a little bit, for maybe some of our listeners and viewers that aren't as familiar, about your history in music, and maybe starting with Caustic, because that was your early project. But then what projects you're in and what you're doing and what you had come out this year.
So the quick version, I've been doing this about 18 years. I was a DJ for 4 or 5 years. Then I started working on my own music. The scene I was and am a part of is the Madison, kind of Wisconsin scene, which brought who mostly people know for Stromkern, Null Device, who's part of Klack. The Gothsicles kind of started here. Even though Brian was kind of, he kind of got more formed here. I'll just put it that way, because I think Brian was doing Milwaukee, Wauwatosa, because that's the area he's from. So a lot of stuff there, and I was promoting shows and a festival that I did every year for several years in the early 2000s, and then Caustic kind of just came into fruition, and it started off as this kind of power noisy, punky kind of electronic thing, and then it's slowly morphed into something that has more shape and quality to it over the years. This year I put out 3 EPs under Caustic. One was just a couple tracks off of the last couple Patreon albums I did, plus an original, and then I put out 2 new albums of just kind of EBM, because EBM has been my big thing and kind of my salvation this year. I've been DJing it a lot, and I find something kind of hypnotic and meditative about just these kind of cycling beats and these cycling bass lines. So and then other stuff I do Klack, as you mentioned. We put out an EP a couple months ago called Probably. Daddy Bear is my other thing, which is kind of also an EBM project, but it's kind of on the sexier side, if I can even say that about anything I do. Because also I don't do vocals on it, so that improves the sexiness quotient significantly. Put that out. I put out EBDSM earlier this year, and I also, part of the Causticals, part of Prude, part of Beauty Queen Autopsy, part of the gothsicles on occasion. So yes, those 3-4 things are my main things though. So yeah.
One thing I wanted to jump in off right on the bat that I think is really interesting with you, Collin and I were talking about this earlier. We know how hard it is doing just our project and our band, and mixing that in, even in these times of we're all locked in with COVID, of home life. You know, we have our partners, we have our making time, finding it to do music and get together. You have 3 kids
Mm-hmm.
and the wife at home. Tell us how the fuck you make that work. How does family fit into you being able to do music and still be successful in it and have time for it?
I don't sleep very much. I work fast when I lock in on something. Unlike being in a band, and Klack is a band, but we're kind of a very separate in our responsibilities in a way. I don't have to answer to anybody. So with Caustic, I go, it's done. I usually bounce things off Eric Ayler from Null Device from Klack, because we're just close pals.
Sure.
Maybe a couple other people just to make sure it doesn't sound terrible. But I mean, when I say it's done, it's done. And I've put out, I don't know, 12 albums, probably 14 or 15 with EPs out there.
Like a lot of production.
A lot of stuff, but that's over a pretty wide span of time too. But just the same, I mean, they're just EPs, quote unquote, just EPs. So it's not like I've been working on my next like full length album, which I put a lot more time into, as it would be. So I mean, these are still canon, the EPs, but they're also not where I'm putting the same amount of insanity that I put into The Man Who Couldn't Stop, which was 18 tracks based on the 18 sections or whatever of Ulysses by James Joyce, which was ridiculous in its own right, or American Carrion, which was a really big political album. That was the last one I put out, but I put that out literally almost 3 years ago. I put it on January 1st, right when the clock struck midnight. I put that album out as a surprise. So it's been 3 years since I put out a quote unquote real album, but you know, EPs are kind of fun to go through, and I work fast. I don't sleep that much as it is, but I kind of keep pumping it out as I can, and I know when I get into something I know I know I can finish it.
Sure.
And
so,
I mean, yeah, let's also be honest, it's not like I'm doing prog rock, you know, or involving real instruments. I play computer. I mean, it's great, and I'm really happy with what I put out, to be totally honest. But it's, you know, it's not rocket science what I do. It's just I've gotten better at it, and I've gotten more efficient, and I know what I'm doing. So yeah, just trying to perfect the formula, really.
Sure. So I also follow your Facebook page and Twitter and whatnot. And I think, you know, I've talked with a lot of the artists that we've interviewed lately and talked to, and that's obviously one of the biggest changes, you know, in the recent music scene. And you've been in it a long time, so you kind of knew how much access people have to the people making their music. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, it's an unprecedented level. In a lot of ways, I think it's absolutely amazing and great how much somebody can be a fan of your music and just kind of get to know a side of you as a person on top of that. And I think you're one of the best at that. I really like, you know, guys like you or Stephen Archer, you do a lot to just kind of express thoughts that you have, views that you have that are outside of your music, just talking. And you put a Facebook post the other day that really struck me, that was about kind of, I don't know, that feeling that a lot of us as artists or musicians have of imposter syndrome or what have you. But yeah, when you feel like you just said, I like what I'm doing and I feel good about it, but at the same time, I also know what my limitations are, and a lot of times just have that. And I remember I posted on that, and because I feel that too. And it was funny to me, you're looking down the line and all these great artists and big name artists are saying, of course I feel that all the time. How could you not, you know, have that kind of feeling and insecurity?
Yeah, it's common. Nothing, I mean, I think as a creative person, or as anybody, whatever, you want to feel like you're super special and everything you feel is super special and super unique. But I mean, I'm old enough to know that it's garbage, and everything we feel is pretty much what everybody else feels, unless you're some kind of narcissistic personality disorder guy or woman.
Right.
I mean, we all, you know, don't think we belong where we are. I and you can be the most trained person on earth, or or just kind of like this little punk scrapper like myself,
Sure.
not being punk, but to say the DIY attitude and self-taught and all that, and you're still going to feel that way. And I think it's important to acknowledge that kind of stuff. And I like feeling as evenly on even ground with as many people as possible. I mean, I have fans. I mean, it took me a long time just to admit that I had people that are considered fans of my work. Sure. I'm like, we're just all friends. I mean, it's more of the way I'm comfortable with how I do things is very much like the Fugazi approach. It's very much back to punk, just like a punk approach where nobody is better than anybody else.
Right.
I mean, that does not mean, however, if someone tries to pull some garbage on me, that I won't pull rank and be like, I don't even know who you are, and I've put out 15 albums. So I mean, I'm not saying I don't have ego, but I don't flex if I don't have to, and I don't think there's much reason to do it because it's dumb. I mean, the amount of albums I've sold has not equaled what Taylor Swift has sold in the time I've started that sentence. So it's you got to keep it in perspective. But I like to acknowledge and talk about things, and I think it's important to people that people know that what you feel is real, but by the same token, we all feel it on some level. I mean, I can feel like a god on stage and be like, oh, this is super fun, and wow. Then you get off stage, and you're like, I don't know why they let me up there. and then I'll be backstage at something like Coldware's, and I'm like, I'm hanging out with Patrick Codeness. Right. Like, not like we're friends. Don't get me wrong. We're not friends, but I'm standing next to Krabby from Pop Elite itself, and I'm like, this is just weird. Or I'll have a conversation with Martin Atkins, but Martin's super nice, and I've met him before, but we're not friends, but it's still like you're kind of pulling the curtain back. And I mean, I have a different access point than the people in the crowd, most of them, but by the same token, I'm not backstage going, I belong here. I'm backstage going, I just took a Red Bull that probably belongs to a more important band. So I think it's kind of fun. And I mean, a lot of what I was doing when I first started getting into this was on MySpace, which, that's a very old thing to say.
Sure. Yeah. Been there.
I used to write blogs about how to book shows, how to get booked, because that's stuff I was heavily involved with at the time. Sure. And so I still do blogs now and again. I'm actually working on something right now that I'm not going to reveal just yet because I hope it doesn't suck. But it's something a little bit more long, quote unquote, long form, which is not that long, but more than a blog post. It's important to me to pull back the curtain and explain to people that things aren't so hard, or how you feel is normal, Right. And I mean, I've also done like posts about just being sober and going to like festivals and how to deal with that, and other things. So I mean, I just, I don't know, I just try to be a good person. And as somebody who wasn't always that good of a person when he first started out doing this, not like I was a terrible person, but we all grow.
We've all grown. We all
grow, yeah. Right. And I've been doing this long enough, and I mean, people are kind enough to listen to me babble and say my own bullshit sometimes. So it's I try to even it out with, I don't know, just trying to help people, trying to be decent.
Yeah, and I think plus that's another thing that was cool about the post is that's just my point. I mean, you ask Neil Peart, well, not now, but I mean, just somebody on that level that's that good a musician, they're struggling with that same feeling. Whether it's somebody, just starting out in music or that, I think it's one that we've all faced. So that's why it really hit me. And the lead-in question I wanted to have on this is what I said kind of in it that I wished, look, I'm not a beat myself in the face type guy or put down about. There are things that I think I do in music that are good and that I'm talented at, and I do in terms of maybe writing lyrics or the promotion aspects or thing. But like without Collin, there's no way that I could do Amaranth without him.
Yeah.
There, like when it comes to the technical knowledge of making this computer work to get the sound we want, I am a lost lamb in the woods. I have nothing. So what I was kind of curious as a project like Klack for you guys, with you and Eric, what do you feel like are the great strengths that you bring to that project? And what are the great strengths that Eric brings to that project? Because to me, that sound, I don't think you could achieve it with either of you gone. It really is something that I feel the synthesis and blending of two good artists that are both bringing something to the table, making the thing sound like more than it would be on its own.
Tell Eric that, because he is so cocky about himself in that project.
No,
I mean, no, it's true. It's true. It's
So how would you break that down? Yeah.
Oh, it's honestly really simple. I mean, if you look at it like a kitchen, Eric is very much back of house and I'm front of house. So Eric writes the music. I'll give you our whole process. Eric will like write out a bass line, a 30 to 45 second bass line or something with some drums in there. Just kind of just dinks it out. He sends it to me and goes, "Hey, I'm working on this." I'm like, "I have lyrics already." So he puts something together real basic. I just generally just import the wave into my DAW. I just chop it up a little bit. I just, there's a little soft spot here, a quiet spot. Here's where the lyrics will go. And I basically I can put together a whole song that way. Just so he sees where I'm going with the vocals and things. And it's all fairly pop structure. There's nothing proggy about it. And so I write the lyrics. Most of the time I find the samples. And he does lyrics too. And he also does half the vocals. We try to even them out on the albums. And then he kind of goes back and he just molds it around my vocals. I'll usually do I'll just do a rough placement track for him to understand it. Sometimes I add in little atmospheric stuff. I'll just put together little things here and there. But I mean, the thrust of it is he likes doing the music, and he does an amazing job on the music.
Yes.
And I do the lyrics, and probably more vocals than he does. It really depends. And then I usually find samples. And then whatever little things it kind of blends back and forth. Like the Revolution Will Be Synthesized was my idea as a track. We did it. We had a version of it that was not working the way he was into as much, and he kind of just improvised all the vocals for it, all the kind of the talking part, which ended up being one of our biggest tracks. But the idea was mine. The music was his, and he kind of took the idea and just ran with it, and it ended up being an absolutely fantastic track. I mean, I think both of us are fairly egoless when it comes to it, because I'll be like, "Oh, can you try this? Can you work on this?" And he's always very amenable to that. And then especially for the songs that he sings, I am not a singer.
Sure.
The people have thought that I was the one singing on the tracks. Sometimes they realize he does the vocals.
I can always tell the difference.
Have you ever heard me on a Caustic track sing? There's a reason I don't. He'll kind of rework the melody or whatever to his vocal style, which is it takes me a little bit to get used to it, because I'm like, this is the way I'm saying it, and I know where my references were for it. So like Faith in Me off of probably I envisioned the vocals to come out more like this Britpop band I love called Gene, because that's where the kind of the inspiration of the lyrics came from. But he sang it as Eric would sing it, which is not wrong in the slightest. And I have to listen to it maybe 5 or 6 times to go, okay, now I'm done with it, because it was just wasn't fitting with where I was originally going. But his version is fantastic. So
it's one of my favorite tracks you guys do. I absolutely that song.
Thanks.
Like one of the ones that really speaks to me.
That one turned out really well. And we're getting more to the point where I ask him for certain types of tracks. So for that one, I was actually kind of like, can you give me kind of like a Policy of Truthy feel track?
Exactly. That's what we were talking about. And
that's what I asked for. And it was and he was just like, sure. And he kind of put out something that sounds kind of like that. And I'm like, because we didn't want to make Policy of Truth, because we're never going to.
Right.
But I'm like, this is the kind of vibe I want from it. And he just kind of put that together pretty quickly. Because I think for both of us, for him especially, he doesn't have to think about nearly as much as Null Device, where there's a whole, I don't know, we keep it simple.
Yeah.
And not that the Null Device keeps it complicated, but he's bringing in so many different elements, and we have such a limited palette for what we do. And we expanded it some on probably because we brought in some kind of like some arena house stuff and some old ravey feels to that last one, just because it was fun and he was playing with it. But he and then when the album's out, I'm the promotion side of it too, which I'm strong at. So basically, I mean, I think it's a best of both worlds for both of us, because neither of us is we're both doing the thing that we are strongest at for the project.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun, but it's and it was done on a fluke, so it's hysterical to us that it's been more popular than, honestly, and more successful in the modern age than both of our projects I would say combined, but you know, it's it took off, and we're like, we just thought this was a fun, goofy idea, and okay, we're making more music, which has been fun. And we rarely ever, I mean, we travel, we have a lot of fun, and we're like, you know.
See, I think that's one of the things with Klack in particular that makes it so good is I can hear that. You know, a lot of times electronic music or music in general, there's that thing of you can tell when someone's really taking themselves very seriously. And, you know, the pretension. And with you guys, I hear fun. I hear that you actually like each other. And you can hear that in the music, and you can hear that in the energy of it. And that's why I do compare you guys a lot to like a Dave Gahan, Martin Gore kind of blend. I mean, and I get like, yes, they're on this.
He's technically, I mean, he's kind of like Martin Gore and Alan Wilder, and I'm Dave Gahan if Dave Gahan was singing industrial lyrics, and Andrew Fletcher at the same time. So we kind of split up the Depeche Mode in that regard, or the old school Depeche Mode. Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of fun. I mean, we kind of, you know, we're very fortunate in that we have jobs, so this isn't like our main way of making money. We basically just put anything we make into the coffers when we need something we can afford to pay for it, and we're not dumb with our money, but it allows us to, like, you know, travel for shows and not have to, like, I mean, we're doing well, but we're not like getting paid, you know, we're not getting paid Boy Harsher money to go places. So it helps us offset our expenses, and it gives us, you know, a little, just, you know, kind of fun money to try things. And Eric's been building up the live performance space that we've used for a couple shows, just getting green screens and all kinds of stuff. And he's been getting to play with that kind of stuff. We have a lot of fun with it, and we release, you know, like a tape, and, you know, we know, I mean, the way I budget, I'm like, this is how many we have to sell, and we made our money back on Bandcamp Friday, and then we're like, cool, so we're making money, and we're just, you know, and it's not major, but it's been really fun, and it's been cool to see the opportunities that come up with it. And so I mean, for saying, again, something we started kind of as not really a joke, but just something we thought would be fun, it's turned into something really pretty cool. And and lyrically, it's a different palette for me too. You know, we have some political songs, but they're kind of lightly political songs. I mean, Bark Bite was obviously more about the Black Lives Matter movement, and that was just something we were feeling. And that was a track that was actually a lot slower, so I asked him to speed it up a little bit. We're not too precious about any of it, but we ended up coming up with, I think, a really quality, you know, really fun quality music in the process. So
I think you guys look for a lot of chances like that, like you mentioned that, but the Depeche Mode cover you did of 2 Minute Major, which that went to 2 Minute Warning. Sorry, hockey. I started thinking hockey. But that was for Klaus Larson, right? Wasn't that, or was it a different track that you did? That was
no. We had actually every December we release. We've been releasing a cover every year. The first one was Pump Up the Jam. Then we did Addicted to Love. Then we did Move Any Mountain last year, and then this. I mean, we've only been around since 2017, and this year we were going to release 2 Minute Warning, but we had for once actually gotten ahead of it, and we had it all recorded already. Because I just told Erica it'd be fun to do. It's one of my favorite Depeche Mode tracks. He's like, "Oh, this is good. It hasn't been done to death. It's not like Enjoy the Silence or something." So he got the music together. He'd gotten his lyrics in. I got my vocals in. So we had it recorded. So, and then when Kurt passed, we're just like, okay, you know, let's do something nice for Klaus.
Yeah,
he's always been wonderful to us, and he's always been very supportive of Klack and our individual things because he's just a great guy.
Just a great guy.
So I mean, it was already in the can. But we thought we could do some good. I think we sent him like $750.
That's awesome.
I mean, people were very generous about it.
Yeah.
And it was a good cover. We had a good time. But he's such a Depeche Mode fan that we thought it was just kind of fit perfectly. And we've been able to raise money for a couple things. When we did when the pandemic first started, our song Discipline, we did a Weird Al take on it called Distancing, which was a friend of ours in Madison, John from Sensuous Enemy, had made a joke about it. And then I wrote the lyrics, like we had a CD release party, like literally the day before everything shut down. And you can actually see it live on our, we kind of streamed it off of our, from the live show there, the Crucible, which is the club in town. And I wrote lyrics to it literally at the merch booth.
Nice.
I was just there at the merch booth because there weren't a lot of people there because everybody was freaking out about COVID, understandably so. So it wasn't a giant crowd, but then we did it live, and I was just reading it off my phone. And then people thought it was really funny, and because it was fun, whatever. We kind of
This
weird out our own
motherfucker's
songs.
spitting.
I laughed so hard. You guys put that out so fast.
Well, I went over to. Did I go to Eric's? I can't remember if I went. I think I must have gone to Eric's to record it. Yeah, it was. I mean, but we were wearing masks and stuff like that. So all the plosives were taken care of. We didn't do pop screen for me because I was taken care of through my mask.
You already got one.
And so we released that to raise money for the people that worked at Crucible.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, we made it on $700-800, which was just incredibly generous. Plus, it was so we were the first ones to put out a parody song about COVID, probably out of the entire world, and we were the first people to stream a live show right as COVID hit. So I don't want to say we were trailblazers because we weren't in any way, shape, or form, but we did the same thing. So
I think he just said that.
yeah, we blazed
Beautiful.
the trails.
I've been talking like a motherfucker in this thing. Do you want to jump in or do you want me to keep going?
I mean, you've been doing great, but I do have a few questions.
Jump in, baby.
So
Sure.
You've been doing quite a few live shows at DJ shows as well as the street shows. And you were one of the first persons I saw do the live DJ shows. How has that been going? And is that something?
It's fun. I just started doing them in my garage because I was seeing people like starting to pop up, and I was like, I don't have the energy to set up like something really nice, and I don't have a lot of room here to do it. I mean, because we've got our house is a decent house, beautiful house, but for me to make that kind of noise and jump around, I just started doing it from my garage. And so there was just garbage all around because our garage is a giant mess. And I had this dumb Christmas penguin that became DJ Christmas Penguin. And at first I just pretended like he was on drugs all the time. And then neighbors of ours who were friends of ours down the street, they had the red Christmas penguin. They dropped it off for me. So we have DJ Neutral Holiday Penguin. And I had pizza boxes that I made into a sound system. It was just dumb. I had all these Amazon boxes in the garage or whatever, and just other boxes. So I just made the whole thing. And so it's been fun, but it's been a really nice way to connect with people. It's been a nice way for me to keep up with music because on Wednesdays I do Body to Body, which is the night I was doing here. That had just kind of been done a couple quarterly events, which is all just EBM and modern body music and I guess bass music, I don't know, whatever. The titles don't matter to me as much as just the fact that it's good dance music. And then on Sundays, I've been kind of switching off. And the big thing I've been doing there is the Retro Industrial, which is like, 90s style club night. Which
my favorite is Britpop. That's my favorite.
And then the third Sunday is the Britpop night, is the Good Mixer. We've done something called Going Underground here a couple times. My friend DJ Ella Fine and I, but since it's just me, I use my DJ name because my DJ name is the Good Mixer, which is the name of the Camden bar where everybody from Britpop hung out. It was literally called the Good Mixer, but I thought it was clever to call myself that because mixing and DJing and stuff too. So now you know how clever I am. But that's been a lot of fun too. And yeah, I mean, it's just, and then I was doing a lot of tribute nights, and now I've kind of started doing kind of pop-up sets where I just play literally anything, and I just go into my library, look at my full library, and I'm like, all right, NWA into D-Light, into Kenny G, into, and I mean, there's a rhyme and reason to it. So I'm actually key mixing and beat matching and all this other stuff, but it's crazy what works and what doesn't. And, sometimes I crash, but it's funny and, whatever. So
anytime you pull off Kenny G into Pulp, I'm here for it. That's
I forget what I did into NWA. Oh man, it was fun though. I think I did Bobby Brown into NWA, but yeah, I mean, it's been a nice way to spend the time. It's been a nice way to kind of get into a different little world, so it doesn't feel like I'm just here all the time. I've met a lot of people, and then what's nice is the DJ community's kind of nationally has tightened up a lot more in some levels. So we gotta just root each other on, and it's not really a competition. I mean, there's always like 4 or 5 people, but we rate each other and we try to help each other out. And it's
that's awesome.
Not my day job, but it's been fun.
Right.
But I make a little money doing it.
Yeah, especially during times like these. I mean, for me, I forgot what an extrovert I was because I'm 43 now and I don't go out like I used to and things like that.
Yeah.
Then when everything happened and this hit, it really struck me. Holy shit, I get so much energy from my light connections with people. And then not going to shows and not playing show, and that's not there. And I'll tell you, a lot of these live streaming DJ shows on Twitch and things like that, like yours, and just getting to say, hey, and talk to someone else in the chat about music or the DJ, that's been that connection that I needed, and has been, I think, such a lifeblood for a lot of people that feel really isolated right now. I think it's made a big difference, and that's why you're seeing DJs being able to get a couple bucks in tips and
Yeah.
keep themselves going on things like that, because
And
there is
stay
a hunger
connected.
for it. People
Yeah.
freaking need that right now.
Yeah, and it's a nice community. I mean, I'm not doing numbers like DJ Slave One has a great
Yeah,
following.
love that one.
Who else? The Restricted Entertainment
Mhm.
kids in Vancouver. Kids, they're like my age, but there's a lot of them that are doing incredibly well, like hundreds of people, and I've gotten up to 100 or something like that, and
Sure.
whatever. But it's also just it's a nice dedicated little crew, and I DJ Brian L and a lot of those folks. Like we've had an opportunity to become fans of each other and steal each other's good ideas. Mojito out of Tucson, I think he's Tucson. He's Arizona, but that area, I think it's Tucson. DJ Mojito, like I've just become a huge fan of his stuff, and he's well worth checking out. These are all just people dinking around. Speaking of Dinkins pub rather, which is the Terminus people. He does stuff, and there's been they do a lot of the same kind of music, but it gives me an opportunity. Like Retro Industrial has given me just a great excuse to go back and remember the music that I thought was awesome in the 90s.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of stuff. And then people will see somebody mention something and I'll be like, oh, who is this? And they're like, oh gosh, I'll just go buy some of that. So I try to surprise people, and people will just be like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that track. So, I mean, it's definitely a comfort food night.
Sure.
It's just like playing stuff that, a lot of people may have forgotten about or just love and want to hear again. So, and that was where everything was really going with me from the get-go. It was just like, let's just chill out for a couple hours, talk with people that we like, and chill out and relax, because this sucks, and it gives us some sort of connections with each other. And most of the people on the chat are local people, regional people.
Sure.
But I mean, for the body to body, I mean, there's body to body and the sun. I think there's some guy who wakes up in Germany who just comes on and says hi. And then I have some British friends that are just up really late at night.
Yeah.
Some who are expats rather. And I don't know, man, it's cool. And then, I like posting the set list so people have new stuff to check out. And
no, I think that's one of the other things that's really blown me away is I'm sitting there at a Sunday at 2 p.m. or something, and you just take a look and flip on Twitch, and how many people I found in a community that made the world feel smaller, in Germany and England and
it's
fucking Australia or whatever, where then they come check out Sounds and Shadows page and read about other bands and things like that. But it's really made the world feel tighter, because we all feel bunkered down in our houses, and this is our way to have some kind of touch with the rest of the world, So and also the live streaming events, like we did the one for animal shelters throughout the world.
Yeah.
There's been a few of those that have been absolutely huge, and people actually doing live music performances on them, where you have a fan where maybe somebody who listened to the album or something but never had a hope to see you live, and now they do. And I hope that's going to continue on after the world starts to get back to normal and people start touring and playing again. But that we still do that. Yeah.
I mean, I'll keep doing it. I mean, I might have to change my hours a little bit, just because, I mean, now I work from home, so I can roll out of bed 5 minutes before I'm supposed to log on and do it. Yeah, but it's I have a good time. It's nice to see people, and I mean, it's nice to make a little money doing it. But that's that's the side benefit. Because I mean, for months I wasn't making jack for the most part, so now I'm making a little bit. It's fine. It's good. It helps. I'm out one of my two jobs, but we're also doing better because we're not paying for other stuff. Yeah, whatever. It's fine. I mean, some people, this is how they make their living right now. So I try to raid my friends that are doing that because they just can't get unemployment for whatever reason, or what, so this is how they make their money. So and there are a lot of good people doing it, and I mean, there's been some silliness, but for the most part, I'll jump on Squarewave TV's thing, because that's my friend David from Trivello Electronico, and he does great things, and he's always raising money for all kinds of good charities, and we've been able to raise a lot of money for charity too, so it's been nice.
No, I've seen a lot of that. And so going along with that, with you kind of doing other things for it, another thing that I absolutely love that you do is your videos where you give industrial news.
Industrial gossips.
Industrial gossips. And you go on, and honestly, I haven't laughed so hard at a lot of these. And again, it goes to that thing of you're there to be able to take the piss out of yourself and have fun.
Yeah.
And, you know, just be open and kind of show another side to it. Do you have any recent industrial gossip that you can kick for us?
I've got some stuff. Like, so I haven't done it in a while.
I know.
I think the last time I
miss it.
did it, I think the last time I may have done it was about a year ago for Cold Waves. I did a couple of them. There is news that Blue Dangle has been working on a trilogy of albums based on How to Train Your Dragon.
Excellent.
That's been a big one. V&V has been investing a lot of money into the pork rind business. It's
How did you get started on these in the first place?
The origination of it was that second was terrible.
Pork rind.
I don't do it as much anymore, to be honest. But it was originally a perk for a Kickstarter campaign. And it was, I will come up with like a couple, if you did it, I come up with some just fake gossip about you.
Yeah.
And I was late on them, of course. But then I did them for 2 or 3 people, and I think I put one of them up online just as a, hey.
To be funny.
Fun.
And
people really enjoyed it. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll do another one. And then I just started doing them. But it was, I mean, to be honest, it's, I do them all myself. So I write. Right. I don't take ideas from anybody else.
Yeah.
Because it has to be in my voice. And you know, and some people are like, you should put real gossip in there. The only time I've ever really done that is I trashed Funkervote for having that Nazi as their singer. Right. And I think I made fun of Anne One once for. No, I wasn't even that bad. I just made fun of them for headlining the same festival for the 40th time in a row, but I wasn't even really making fun of them. So I mean, some people tried to like have me sneak in real things, and I'm like, I'm not trying to be.
That's
mean.
not what I'm here for, right? It's supposed to be fun.
It was never like anytime I did anything, it was always just as a joke,
right?
And I mean, and I was always trying to I never tried to needle someone or like start a dumb online thing with anybody. People just I was just having fun, and I did it for months on end, and then I took a break, and then I came back with some more, and I'd like to do it again, but honestly, the reason I stopped was I wasn't sure how often I was repeating myself, because I mean they're all just random things I pull out of my head. It's not based on current events. Rarely. And it was getting very hard for me to go back, and I would go back to certain things like, oh, how many times do you want to say something funny as a tramp stamp on this one artist or something like that? And,
maybe you need to get like me and Collin, like George R. R. Martin has that like couple of kids who go through reading his books to make sure he doesn't grow up.
I have most of the videos. I have most of them. I have my shooting scripts of most all of them, so I do have them. But I also didn't feel like, do I really want to go through all these and see my stupid things? So I part of me was thinking about making like a spreadsheet where I just had the topic. Like how many times have I hit the topic?
I can just see an Excel sheet with keywords in, so you can.
Yeah, like how many times have I said rim job? So it's I do have.
It's 6. Answer 6.
6, maybe it is. I have some of my favorites, but I thought it was a trip because like if I ever did one on A-pop, Stefan Groth would always like repost it, which was crazy to me. And I don't know if it would have only come up if he knew about it or if somebody told him about it. But he was always thought it was really funny. It was like, it's always true, And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I don't know him. I don't know. We did it. We played on a bill once forever ago, but we didn't ever meet or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think the only thing he knows about Caustic is that. But I thought that was really a trip because it was kind of reaching people. And some people, really enjoyed it. I never got any real bad feedback out of it. Except maybe a couple people were like, I don't think it's that funny. But I'm like,
whatever.
I'll give you your money back. I don't care. So, it was... But honestly, it's been something that people bring up to me a lot when I'm out, and if they recognize me for whatever reason, and it's very complimentary. It means a lot to me that people enjoyed it, but it also put the pressure on me to suck. So, there were some that were always better than others, but then the ones I think are going to nail it, like people are like, whatever.
What was that?
That next one was really funny.
Yeah.
So, and then I kind of mean to people. I'm not really mean, but I'll pick on certain.
Yeah, it's poking fun, sure. But
it's never meant to be anything but just dumb.
Yeah, but that's good press too. And so if, like me, you are desperate for more industrial gossip, leave a comment below so that Matt goes back and reads this and sees that the people are hungry
we need
for the industrial gossip again.
It gets brought up more than I would have imagined. So
And
that's
apparently-
which makes me feel good. So it's nice. And maybe one day. I've never said I'm done. I just not now.
You got to be
and
feeling it. You got to be feeling
I
it.
gotta be. Yeah, it's definitely a groove you got to get into, and it's definitely. It's a lot of work, and at the time when I was at my job, I would just do it over lunch breaks. I'd just try and pump out as many as I could. If I was in a meeting and I'm like, oh, write this down, like, oh, everybody else is a Kool-Aid man, sure, and everything goes cool. I don't fucking know. So it was good times, but I should go through them and just try and see what I don't want to, because I just never wanted to repeat a joke.
Right.
I mean, I come from a improv comedy background where repeating things is natural in some respects, of course, but not something. The challenge to me doing those was always coming up with 10 like brand new things.
Right.
And some were always a little more out there, and some we were based on the personality of the person. Because I mean, I did one of Brian Erickson from Velvet Acid Christ in a floppy hat at a whatever a water slide park, or a water park, and some are just silly images of people that take themselves very seriously. But he thought it was funny, so it's like again, it was just playing against the personalities of people, and some people take themselves entirely too seriously. So it was fun for me to not take the piss out of them, because again, the contrast. The contrast.
Jester taking the king down a peg is something that everybody always loves and that's all right.
And that's always been Caustic, so it works out nicely.
Do you want to do the Jared Luce shoe question? Is it time for the shoe question?
I'm ready for the shoe question. So do you need the background?
Yeah. Okay. So
I don't know what you're talking about, so yes.
We did an interview with Dog Tablet with Martin King and Jared Luce. And one of the things that Collin asked about was because Jared always has the most amazing footwear.
Have you paid attention?
I don't know if you ever noticed.
His outfits in general, but my God, it's great.
So it got Collin thinking.
I was wondering if his footwear affected his vocal takes in any way. If there was this inspiration of,
like, if he went to the booth, he had to have a particular pair of shoes.
If I'm in this sassy mood, I need to have the green crocodile.
Right.
Or
if he was doing his cover girl type stuff that he did.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that led into,
what kind of accoutrements of absurdity do you need in the vocal booth to get you inspired?
To get you there in the headspace.
Okay. So literally I'm in my studio and literally I'm in my vocal booth. So I could be wearing anything. I don't really I'm a
But what if you don't have Castle Grayskull behind you?
Isn't that nice? That's from when I was like 7 years old. Graupner's got one of those too. Like the kids, like this has become like the room over from me is where our Christmas tree is. So like there's so many toys from our kids' toys are in here. No, I don't really subscribe to that. I don't have good footwear. I wear the same Vans the same style of Vans that I got for free when we played with the Dead Milkmen. Right there, and they gave us free shoes. Rodney thought it was funny that that we got paid incredibly well, but I cared more about getting free stuff because I thought that was cool. Hey, that was awesome. Vans took really good care of us. It was really a great show.
Rodney Lind is a treasure for sure, a total treasure in this scene.
Oh yeah, it was great. But no, I'm not a superstitious feller. I don't really believe in like dumb stuff, and that's what Jared does. But I can see Jared getting his vibes off that, but no, I just kind of pump out what I got to pump out. I mean, the only thing that's different with my vocals these days is you'll hear a lot more like kind of softer vocals from me, and a lot of that's because I'm doing it late at night and I can't scream. So I've adapted my vocal style to my children's sleep schedule, which is good. It's a little easier on the voice, but it's also stuff I won't play live because I don't talk like that live usually, outside of like lady business or something. But
all right, I want to go back.
I wish I had a better answer. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No.
I want to go back into music and talk a little bit about a succession of repetitive beats. This was a really interesting album, and I think a pretty big change for you from some of what the other Caustic things were, and a dynamic shift. In particular, the song Stale Semen Shame and Video Games fucking slays me. Yep. It absolutely slays me. Tell me a little bit about what the inspiration for this one was, because I think it does a great job of what Caustic does, and that's, yes, this is a old school hardcore industrial driving sound and track, but it also has a bit of Rodney Lynn and Dead Milkman and humor to it, but also a kind of serious concept too in the idea.
Yeah, it's
What
yeah,
brought that about?
I sometimes just, you know, expressions come into your head. I mean, I didn't like workshop Emmanuel Lewis hand job when I came up with that idea. It just, the expression came into my head and it became something. And I was just probably, I think I was just sitting here, and then so I just kind of said stale semen, shame in video games. Maybe I was driving, either way. But I mean, it just kind of came into my head, and I'm like, what would that be? I mean, because I could just make an instrumental track with a funny title.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I think somebody posted, like, oh, this is the track. I forget who did it. It was somebody on Twitter. And I'm like, they posted, like, this is from Caustic. I'm like, literally anybody, if they know who Caustic is, knows that that was a Caustic name for a track.
Right.
Because nobody, you're not seeing Project Pitchfork put out a song called Stale Semen Shame in Video Games. But then I just kind of, like, started chanting it in my head. Then the lyrics just kind of came out of me. And I mean, one of the reasons I haven't worked on my new, like, full-length album is I just have had some ideas, but the words haven't come to me yet. And I'm starting to. But this song, the lyrics kind of just came out of me pretty quick. I had to do a couple rewrites on a couple things that weren't working as well. I laid down some basic vocals just to get the idea, to get the structure of the song down a little better, and then it just kind of was there. But no, I mean, it's a creepy song. I mean, it's just about an incel.
And it is creepy and scary, but at the same time, addressing it in a, I don't know, if you look at the monster and find a way, you know, kind of Harry Potter style, to make the monster a joke.
Yeah,
it takes away its power.
I mean, it's something that I mean, over the last, you know, several years with all the Me Too movement and all this stuff, I mean, I've had to take a look at things that I did in my past that I'm not proud of, but then I do have a weird sympathy for that, but at the same time, I don't have any sympathy for that, and it's very bothersome. So I have, since Caustic started, I've written about fucked up people. Yeah. I mean, if you look at like We Never Learn off Man Who Couldn't Stop, and that song is literally about every type of screwed up person, and about how, like, we are all the same in some respects.
In a repetitive cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and that's the only one that has a full set of lyrics on it. And I did do a bunch of different stuff with this. I was experimenting with a little more dubbiness, in terms of just, you know, using reverbs and using delay a lot more, and within an EBM structure, because I put out the King of EBM in May, I think, which was a lot more. It was EBM, but it was also a little more, I don't want to say standard Caustic, but a lot more screamy and a lot more aggressive as it would be. So this was a little more chill by comparison, but I still think it had some real bite to it. And I appreciate you saying it, because I think it turned out really nice. There was a simplicity that I've been working towards, and because I kind of mentioned, just the EBM's been my thing, and I appreciate very much the simplicity of the style, but trying to maximize the power of it is the difficult part.
The efficiency,
that was the thing I noticed on this album as a progression. Was it seemed, I think the elements happening, there might be less of them, it might be more sparse, but at the same time, it felt a lot thicker and it felt a lot fuller than previous releases.
Thank you. Yeah, I it's something I've been practicing. Like, again, just trying to perfect the formula, for lack of a better term, even though I try not to work with the formula. But yeah, it's been an interesting experiment for me. I don't know if I'm going to have as much EBM on the new album, because I'm still working it out, but it's been a nice way for me to experiment and get some ideas and use some influences outside of what I've been doing for a while, and trying some different vocal techniques and trying some different, I try to push myself, and sometimes more than others, but it was fun to try and push myself in a couple different directions just to get a feel for things, to see how it worked and learn how to just use the production techniques. So yeah, but it's been doing pretty well. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, you kind of put it out there and, you hope people enjoy it, and some people, people have reacted nicely to it. So, but I think some people just want me to be a crazy, screamy guy who just yells
Sure.
and shit too, which is fine. And I'll see where the new album takes me, but we'll see how it goes. I kind of disappoint people regularly, so it's whatever. It's my project. I don't pay the bills with it. So.
Well, and if the kid's schedule lets that happen, so
Yeah. There you go.
It'll get done. But yeah, I've definitely. I used to have like a meeting like once a month that would get out early, and so I'd rush home, sit down in the booth, crank out as many vocal takes as I could, then go pick up the kids from babysitters at school.
See, that's what I was looking for earlier. Of how do you make that life work?
That was a while ago. That was a while ago. But I haven't put out an album in a while. So I mean, I could kind of crank out, as long as I'm not swearing it too much.
Right.
I can kind of do it when they're in the other room, as long as they're not making noise. So it's
maybe you need to start sampling them making the noise. And
my kids.
Background.
My kids have popped up in tracks. People don't know it. I've got my son. Like my son was like, I was doing a vocal take and he was just went something, and did some weird scream, and so that's like looped in a couple tracks. Yeah, people don't know. People have no idea what I've gotten there. I mean,
that's his legacy. He'll get to inherit that later. Remember that time you were on that album? Yeah.
Yeah, he'll get royalties off that one. The 4 cents I get.
So I wanted to say here, it's that special time in the interview where, because you brought this up, I will turn it over and just go away in my head, since I don't understand any of this. Where Collin will talk nerdy technical shit.
Oh,
he wants to ask you, that just makes my eyes roll back. So I'm just gonna go away, and Collin is gonna ask you technical questions now.
I hope I don't disappoint you, because I've said before that I am self-taught, so the words I have for things are not the words that other people may use. But yeah, I'll talk about my beep boops.
I want to hear you do. I want to hear you be like, and then I use the fizzy blue beep.
This is how I made this beep boop. I added distortion.
Yes. No, my question was, you said earlier it's all in the computer, and I'm gonna shift towards Klack more with this. You guys have such a retro industrial feel to a lot of those things.
Yeah.
It's very, it sounds like old analog glitchy drum machines and a couple mono synths. It has that feeling, and tape and all that. What are you using to get that feeling and to get the simplicity that you would get from having those machines?
Well, Eric makes all the music, but I know for a fact that he has basically tons and tons of like vintagey sounding sound banks. Okay. And Eric is an incredibly well-read person for what people used to use. So we did a Depeche Mode cover band years back called the Violators, and we did it for one night. It was a thing that they do over holiday weekend. I did a ministry one, I did a big black one, but the Depeche Mode one was the last one we did. And Eric would go back into old like interviews with Depeche Mode and read about what they used, and it would find those same sound banks, or if he could afford the thing himself. So he knows, he could figure out within minutes in some cases. Maybe I'm giving him more credit. He is incredible at researching.
Yeah.
So he knows, and he just can hear things because he's so well versed in this. He can say they use this on this song. They use this on this song. I know they use this on this song because it's in the video.
Yeah.
So he was able to put together these exact sounding tracks. A lot of times also using like dub versions and things like that. So Eric makes all the sounds for Klack. Okay. But I know that he will drop like, oh, they use this on this, so I'm going to try some of these and see what it sounds like. We owe a lot of what our sound is to bands like Microchip League and things like that, because that those toms fills are so Microchip League. And there's an amalgam of probably like 20 or 30 influences on every song, because I'll say we're going for this. He sent me a demo. I'm like, I'm getting this vibe off of this kind of 2/4/2, this particular track, and he goes, that was exactly it. So but it doesn't sound like, it sounds like it, but it doesn't sound like it. The spirit, I'll put it that way, because it's not like we're ripping anything off. The spirit of it is there, but we're doing our own twist on it the way we do it.
No matter what, you guys sound like you.
Right.
In the end. Because
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the, which is always one of the nicest things we can hear about it, because people have like been, thought it was like some rip off of like Nitzer Ebb or something like that. It's like, no, there is that element there, but there's like a dozen other elements there. If I was going to point out what we were really influenced by, it is not necessarily that at all. I mean, lyrically, I come from like, I generally try to keep things in the simple tone of like catching up with Depeche Mode into some great reward territory on the songs that Eric sings. On my stuff, it's going back to Split Second. It's going back to early Nitzer Ebb. It's early 242. I mean, I wrote one of the songs that we did, one of our early songs, with a chorus that I thought was the chorus to a Depeche, to a 242 song that I was wrong about, but I liked the way that sounded, so we used that as the chorus for that other song.
I love
So
that.
there's a zillion nerdy references to Madison bands and to Madison events. And I mean, DMF was the kind of the bigger song off our first EP. DMF was a club night, a college club night that was done in a cafeteria here that were all the industrial kids would go to. I never went to it because I was like too nervous to be around.
Yeah,
like I was a ribbon head like by myself all the time, right? So I mean, it's super referential musically, locally, regionally. There's a lot of references to friends and things like that. The song "Flowers for Ravers" off of
I love that fucking track.
was I mean, not to get into too deep, "Flowers for Ravers" was Ned Kirby of Stromkern's project before Stromkern.
Oh, okay.
So it was funny. That's funny to us. There are references to the Drop Bass Network Further Festival in it, which is a big kind of like DIY. They just do all these breakcore events and drum and bass events and stuff. There's references to a friend of ours who had passed away in there, who's actually a roommate of Ned's at one point when he was making Armageddon. There's a lot of things, and there's the references to bands like Thrillkill with the samples that we use in it.
Yeah.
So it's we are. I mean, if you also listen to the Pump Up the Jam cover, we're doing Pump Up the Jam, but we also reference KLF in there. We also reference Pump Up the Volume. We also reference, in everything inherently. So it's like this turducken of freaking weird references. But it's something that we think is fun. We are the product of our references and our influences.
Sure.
But we try to take it to a new level. And I think we do. And I think part of it is Eric's references and my references he'll know a musical reference and I won't know it, but I'll have a lyrical reference. Like I said, I reference a whole bunch of Britpop stuff where I'm writing the lyrics from. So it's not sounding like I'm writing a Depeche Mode song.
Well,
it sounds fun.
And all
but it works.
music, is going to be, the key is going to be synthesis, right? I mean, nobody's rewriting the chord progressions the Beatles did. They did them all or whatever, going back.
Yeah.
It's about, like you said, taking all of those references and blending it together to make something fresh and that's your own. And I think that's what you guys succeed at.
And I mean, I think it was Steve Archer had a thing a couple of days ago where he was talking about like, what are your greatest weaknesses? What are your greatest strengths?
Yeah.
As an artist, and he tagged me, which was nice of him. And then I just kind of went off. But I also said part of it was when I have a project, I'm generally very good at finding the voice to it quickly. And Klack has had an aesthetic of its own since the first EP that we've stuck with the whole time. And we do like the shirts, not so much because we can do little goofy shirts. We do, KLF shirt we're putting out now. But the aesthetic of the band is very much set in stone from the get-go. And it took me a little bit to find it with Caustic, but that was my first thing. But I mean, Beauty Queen Autopsy, Prude, all of them have a very distinct voice and aesthetic that is not always because of me, but I think that's important to understand. And with a lot of bands, it's very hard to find that at first, to find your voice. But I think we glommed onto something quickly and it worked out nicely for us. So
yeah.
And so last thing with Klack, I was going to ask, the artwork with that beautiful, very defined Bauhaus inspired, the School of Art, not the band. Who is doing that?
We do everything ourselves.
It is you guys, and
it's like Eric usually puts the art together. I come up with the images quite a bit. but he has as well. I mean, the first one was the Allen wrench, and that was a joke towards the fact that we came up with a band title, the title or the artist, Klack. We were at IKEA and we needed a name for a band, so my wife had said, "Why don't you guys just figure out something in IKEA and call yourself that?" And then I saw Klack from like across the pillow aisle or whatever, and we just said, okay, that sounds like a good name for a band. And the flipping the K's the outside the other ways, that was an idea. But it was, but it's a simple, clean aesthetic. But that goes back to like KMFDM, and that goes back to like Wax Tracks and things like that. I mean, with Caustic stuff, at least, I've always used the KMFDM model to be consistently branding at all times.
Yep.
And the few times I've diverged from that have been the least popular things I've done. The shirt you're wearing, one of the very few ones that's actually worked out pretty well. But that's also the one shirt my mother won't wear. So, because I look so hideous on it, but it's so fun.
My other favorite on the art is the introducing the 1984 Renault Le Car.
I love that.
I just love the simplicity and it's just awesome. The concept.
That was from Eric just doofing around one day and saying, what car would be the car of Klack? And then he sent it to me, and then we said, okay, let's call it that. And there's actually not a 1984 Renault Le Car. That's actually they discontinued that model in '83. So it's kind of funny because it's there's 84 like whatever different versions of it. But yeah, I mean that's just the end. We get along well because we've been friends forever, but it's also because we have a similar sense of humor, and we think it's very funny to do super silly things like that. And that's kind of like what makes Klack fun. Is it's kind of, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's kind of whimsical and it's lighter. I mean, we can have songs with a little heavier subject matter, but it's it's kind of impish and fun, and we're just goofing around and trying to really just make it work as it does. And we put out our first thing in September, I think, of 2017, our first EP. A couple months after that, and then it's just been a building process, which has been really cool. And the support we've gotten and the promotion of what we do, it's for having no budget and just kind of letting it see where it flew. It's been very cool. It's been very I don't want to say humbling, surprising more than anything, but we've really enjoyed, the opportunities we've had because of it. And I don't swear in any of the songs so my kids can hear all my music. So
there you
nice.
go.
That's awesome.
In the same way though, that, we've talked, we brought up a couple times, say like Dead Milkmen. I think that's another thing to me though, is your music can be whimsical and it can be funny, but also like the Dead Milkmen, it didn't mean that they weren't tackling serious subject matters. I mean, they do a song about smells, and then they turn around and do something that, although it was whimsical, it struck to a deeper chord about the counterculture of the time, and you can do both. And I think that's where your music hits on, is riding that razor line, and that's what's important.
Well, it's skewering. I mean, they would take the shit on the punk scene as fast as I would take a shit on the industrial scene. And I've had people compare me to like the Weird Al of industrial, which is weird because I don't do parody songs. And I get that they're saying it as a compliment because Weird Al's fantastic. But I mean, if I was to compare myself to another artist, I would put myself in the same thing as the Dead Milkmen, who I've been listening to since I was 15 years old. Same. So the fact that I'm friends with, the Rodney and I have done things together, and Rodney plays in Caustic sometimes, it's an honor beyond an honor to even call him a friend. And
does that make you giggle uncontrollably occasionally?
It's very weird. It's very weird, but it's incredibly cool. And then the rest of the band are really nice too. And I've kind of gotten to know Dean's super cool. Yeah. I've gotten to know Joe Jack a little bit, Joe Gennaro. But yeah, it's just weird. I've been skewering the industrial scene for freaking 18 years. So it's and I don't think I've ever lost my edge with it. But I've also, I take myself not so seriously, but I take the music very seriously. Sure. And people don't quite understand how that diverges sometimes.
But it can, yes.
And that's the same thing that happens with Graupner and the Gothsicles. And we did a podcast a long time ago where we talked about that. I think Gottesman was even on that one because he was in town for a show. just about how people don't understand that you can be funny or have humorous elements and then still take things seriously.
Yeah.
And how hard it was for us. And this was a long time ago that I did the podcast. That was at least a decade ago. That, you know, it's harder to get respect doing what we were doing. But the scene has kind of grown into us being part of the regular part of the scene finally, and getting that respect regardless. But we didn't have to bend ourselves to it. They kind of bent around us, which is nice.
Well, I think there's also that point of, like, we had that realization that the Daily Show has probably had more influence on people than actual real news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as being more pertinent, more relevant, and more impactful. And I feel like
it goes down easier when it's funny.
Yeah. And I feel
and
like
when it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Everything works better if it's got a lightness to it, less judgment to it.
Yep.
I mean, there's a reason the dead Kennedys are still lauded, and it was because Jello Biafra, for all his being Jello Biafra, is was able to put together a way of doing things and a way of expressing things that were both funny and biting and satirical, but also bringing light to a lot of subjects. Right. So. And the same thing with the Dead Milkmen, and the same thing with, you know, a lot of bands that had enough intelligence behind it. And that's where I think people didn't really quite understand where we were coming from. Because I'm not saying we're geniuses, but Brian and I and Gottesman are all smart people. And it's really hard to do this successfully.
Right. No, it's true.
And I'll admit when I screw up, and I'll admit when something was not as good as it should have been. But when we nail it pretty fucking hard. Yeah. So it's I mean, that's a toot horns too bad, but I'm going to give us credit where credit is due, I think.
Sure.
So it's very nice to show also that you don't have to fit into this cookie cutter garbage, where a lot of bands feel like they have to. The only way they can succeed is by being like so many other bands, which is the worst way to do things and the least impressive way and the hardest route. I mean, I would rather go on the road less traveled, because at least I know when people start paying attention, they're gonna pay attention because it is the road less traveled, and not because you're the 4,000th band that has done Cyber Falls and blah 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 and all these other things. And there's still good bands in that area, so I'm not going to get into that garbage that are sincerely significantly more popular than I am. I mean, I'm a cult artist at best, but it's even within the scene. But I have a lot more respect for what I do, I think, than those bands do.
Sure.
So.
All right.
But I might just be trying to be egotistical about it, so who fucking cares?
I'm all for being egotistical. Go ahead and do it. I do it all the time.
I mean, who cares? When it comes down to it, like my band, my stuff's going to get played on dance floors a lot less than some other artists. But I do what I want. It makes me happy. I always appreciate those who listen, and I have my fun.
Hopefully that changes. All right, we're coming up near the end, so I want to get a couple of quick shots out here. Number one, going back to you being a DJ and doing that, I think one of the things that's really interesting right now in the modern industrial EDM, EBM scene is that, unlike maybe in the early 90s when I was first really getting into industrial, I've had so many, whether it's you doing a remix of it or Stephen Archer, or I mean, so many of these guys, Jared Leach, lifting all the ships around them up. And you really, I mean, we talked about access in terms of that, but I think beyond that, you just see it's not a competition, and people in this scene right now are really doing everything they can to helping everyone around them, young and up and coming people, get legs and get over. I mean, a wrestling reference here, but tell me about right now 3 bands or artists.
Oh, I missed this part.
That you're excited about right now, that you feel like get you fired up about the future of industrial EDM, EBM music.
Okay. First one I'll say, and of course I'm going to be indulgent because these are all pretty much friends of mine.
Yeah, do that.
Grab your face.
Fucking friend, love that album right now. That just
Marie.
She is amazing.
Marie is amazing, and she does this super kind of sad go electronic dancing music, and it's super intimate and raw. And
that album C is so good. I've been like playing it nonstop.
So good. She's
it's
so
intimate,
freaking
but it's
good.
Still, it pumps
and she's
you up.
And she just they released it on Negative Gain. She was going to release it, and then they signed her, and she had to hold off for a couple of weeks. And I'm still on Negative Gain with Caustic.
Yeah.
But she worked with me on a couple tracks on the new Daddy Bear, and I had first heard of her. I think she first kind of came into it because she worked on that Covenant. I can't remember the name of the album. I forget. It was I think it was just an EP.
Yeah.
But she just did the Covenant, and it was funny because we were talking, and I didn't realize that we were friends on Facebook, but I didn't realize she was Grab Your
That was her, right?
Okay. And then we each bought each other's stuff, and then she's incredibly talented.
That one hits me right in the feels.
She is amazing. She knows how to. She is so. I mean, there's a song "Confession" on her first, I guess, or actually maybe it was her second full length. That just I play it all the time, and it just tears your heart out. And she's so open and raw, but it's vicious in some ways too. So she's amazing.
I'm going to have her on this show very soon. Where you're going to see her come on.
She's so nice, and she's just a great.
Yep, she's going to be on here soon.
She just does such unique stuff, and in a way that I love it, and I was so happy that she agreed to help me on my album and stuff. So that was cool.
Strong number one. Now number two.
One. I will say I'll give a shout out to my pal Mark from Choke Chain. Choke Chain is out of Lacrosse. Same. And he was introduced to me by Benny Sweat of the Sweat Boys, who are the band I love. Yep. And but Mark, Choke Chain's first EP came out. I was kind of pimping it, and it was and a lot of people got into it, not because I was pimping it, but I luckily when I choose to pimp things, it's usually because I think it's really cool, and it was nice to see that other people agreed. And
good music, so that's will rise.
There. And let me see, what's the third one? I'm trying to think of somebody.
Ben, while you're thinking on it, like he actually, and I'm sure he did this to you, but Ben from Sweat Boys, who I talk to all the time,
Ben's great.
IM'd me, and he was like, Ken, you need to, for your music page, like this is something you need to get a hold of. And he was the one who sent me Choke Chain and got me listening to them. But I always love when a band that I respect, like Sweat Boys, I love what Ben does and the music that he does. And when someone like that says, here is someone that isn't anything to do with me, I'm not on the album or anything, but you need to be listening to it.
Yep.
That says a lot to me. And immediately I was like, let me clear my schedule and deep dive into this. Yep. And it's absolutely amazing. It's just so hard and fierce and like has that electronic edge, but like fucking clutch at the same time. Like it just has like a growling sharp tooth metal.
Yeah, and his vocal style is kind of like a cross between Hatari and Gothicals.
Yeah.
So it's and his new EP, he gave me a sneak peek of it about a month ago, and it's gonna be, people are gonna love it. So it's great.
Yeah.
He's just a nice dude, and he came out of the
Mark is
scene.
Great. Yeah.
He came out of the punk scene. His brother was in Phantom Limbs, which is like an old school like gothy punk band. Which is just a trip. And but we kind of became pals, and we've been working. I've been trying to help him navigate and navigate things. So so that one is a good one. And then I'll pimp another one that people have kind of paid attention to, and she's been blown up, a Feline out of Chicago, who is
you nailed it.
Justina is just incredible, and she came up. I was trying to revive my festival a couple of years ago, and it just was not getting the traction it needed to. So I decided to kind of jump ship because I didn't want to lose a lot of money, and I wanted to make sure that everybody could get paid and all that. And it was the most noble way I could do it, which unfortunately, no harm, no foul. But we brought her up anyway because she was supposed to play it. And it was one of the most. She's just one person on stage, but can just deliver. And she was supposed to play Cold Waves this year.
Yep.
And she did a couple of great online performances that you can find on YouTube.
Yeah.
She did one for, I think it was Red Bull, maybe. No, it's a relatively like a corporate something. But she is the real deal, and she is so talented. And I know she's got some collaboration stuff going on. And but Justina, everybody should check out Feline.
Yeah.
Because she's only got a couple singles out.
Right.
The Blood Sisters EP But everyone is worth buying, and live she was just captivating. So I'll say those are my three, and some people might not consider the first and the third that industrial, and I don't give a shit, because they are they're all within the dark electronic awesome stuff that I love. But those are all well worth checking out, and I will definitely hold up on that.
Yeah, I will give you 3 for 3. All of those are Sounds and Shadows approved. I love all of those, and Feline is absolutely incredible. I really
she's so good.
Live. I mean, it kind of has that same vibe as the first time I saw Ayatoya, Anya.
She's nice. Yeah, I played with her
one woman army, huge energy that just you can't not fall in love with that when you see it live. See the sheer amount of just passion and intensity.
And she's incredibly nice on top of it, which is I don't want to say it's secondary to, but it's so nice to have in this scene in general. There's very few people that I think are assholes. There's a couple, but let's not talk about Eric Ayler anymore. So but Ayatoya is fantastic. She's so nice. Everybody I talked about are just cool people, and it's so I glad you agree, but I don't see why anybody wouldn't, because they are that good. So
so that's absolutely amazing. I love the picks that you did there. And the last thing that I just wanted you to talk about here is what you have going for the future. Oh, you got one first, Collin? All right, go quick.
But I have a suggestion here. I need in my life a Caustic track based on the Battle of the Grocery Store and the Mighty TP Hunt.
The what?
A video you did.
The hunt for TP in the apocalypse.
Oh! The things where I was pretending like I was going to like the wasteland to get toilet paper.
Pretending? Were you pretending?
No, I mean yes and no. I was going out there, but I would write it up like it was like the savage thing where people were setting each other on fire and stuff. Yeah, those.
It was the Mad Max toilet paper hunt, and I loved it, and I needed it. And
that could be a Caustic track. We want to see that in the future.
I ran out of things to say for those, because I kind of kept elevating like every one of those journal entries, and then I got to the point where I'm just like, first I was kind of like, okay, I think it's kind of old now, but I was having so much fun writing those, and a couple of those were like, those were based on actual things that were, some of them were based. When it got crazy, it was just crazy. But I mean, it was just me being inspired by how weird it was to be shopping when everybody was like masked up and there's somebody who wasn't, and it was just like, it was, it was, I don't know, just from the way the news was, everything was represented, it was fun to do that. And it was amusing neighbors of mine and stuff like that, and people that would have to go to the same store. But I don't think I'll do that. But I appreciate you asking.
All right, so
I with Caustic, I've had like Caustic and the Gossicles get so many offers of song titles and subjects. I think I've only ever used one album title idea from a friend. And some of the best of my knowledge, except for when somebody actually paid as part of Kickstarter to name a song for Caustic, I've only used one song title that somebody gave me. Not to say that, but Lady Business was inspired by something somebody said to me, but that wasn't like an offered title. That was just an inspiration. So, yeah.
All right.
But thank you for offering. Thanks for asking.
I want you to go out on, hopefully, things are starting to get the world back to some semblance of normal with the vaccine coming out and this year in the future. What do we have to be excited for Caustic and Klack coming up in 2021? You talked about an album that you're working on right now, but tell us what we have to be on the lookout for and excited for.
April, I'll be re-releasing The Golden Vagina of Fame and Profit, because I'm getting my rights back from Metropolis on that, because there's a contract deal, and I'm actually going to be adding at least 10 tracks.
Wow.
Mostly demos, tracks that didn't make the cuts.
Sure.
So that'll be on Bandcamp and streaming services. I might do a vinyl reissue for it, but I got to work out some logistics for that and some money things for that. Klack we're working on a new EP, and there is something else coming out from us on Bandcamp Friday, in February that we can't announce officially, but just be ready for it. And it's something we haven't done yet, so you can figure that out if you want. And if you don't figure it out, that's fine too. But we're working on that. We're working on the next EP. We're well into the next EP. Eric's been doing some different stuff with it. We're going back to kind of more of our original sound, but Eric's kind of dirtying it up a little bit, which is kind of fun. He's working with a lot of different compression and some more distortion and stuff to make it a little bit harder. And we're kind of a couple tracks into that. And I've got several ideas that I've asked him kind of, and which when I pitch things, I'm just kind of like, give me a track, give me like a mid-tempo track that sounds a little bit like this and a little bit like this. And he goes, blah, because Eric's that good.
And it just
then
happens.
I go, now we have a new hit. Look how good we are.
I take full credit.
I take full credit for my good ideas. So those, the new Caustic is, I finally got mad at myself. For this album, for the last couple of years, I've kind of had to get out of my own way because I've been overthinking the new album too much. And I have a basic concept of the way I want it to flow. Mm-hmm. Which I might as well even say it. It doesn't really matter because if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I want it. One of my favorite albums of all time is the debut from Mr Bungle, which came out in 90, which is Mike Patton's original band from high school. Right, yeah. And it was produced by Mr Bungle and John Zorn. And it's this, just the whole thing flows. So there's no like dead space between songs. It's just everything is weird and just kind of flows. And I'm not looking for the sound of that album because I can't do that. But I want it to be this immersive thing that is all flowing into each other. So that's the basic idea behind it. I have a lot of themes for it that I might work with, but it's not a concept album because I've already done that. And frankly, those get annoying very quickly. I don't need to wave that dick. That dick's been waved. So it was done the most ridiculous way possible. So lots of it. But yeah, and I don't know if I'm going to put anything else out by Caustic anytime soon, just because I've put out a lot of stuff, and it's, I think, been a way to distract myself from working on the full album. So yeah, I don't know. I got some ideas, but yeah, I think I'm going to lay a little more low next year. And I say that I might put out 3 EPs. I don't fucking know.
And hopefully there'll be a Cold Waves next year.
And well, that's the plan is very much that there's a Cold Waves next year. I don't think I'll be having anything to do with it outside of helping promote it and going to enjoy it because there's a lot of good bands that'll be asked, and hopefully they'll be able to even reassemble some of the lineup from this year. I know 242 is already supposed to play it because they've already announced those dates later next year. They announced because they had to put off the March/April dates and they pushed it back, and they already said it's on Cold Wave, so it's not revealing anything new. But it's still exciting because I mean they've played.
It's from 242.
Because it's 242. They've played twice already.
Yeah.
So they're kind of, I won't say they're the house band, but if you want to make a band the best band to play there as much as and often as possible, 242 has been killer.
I think the last time I saw them was Lollapalooza 1992. I
saw them in Stanhope, New Jersey at that.
Yeah.
Yep, I was up in the pit. Yeah, so that was the first time I saw them. And then I've seen them three or four times since, and most of all those times have been at the Metro. So, and it's been it's that fingers crossed people get their heads out of their asses and the vaccine works and we can start having fun again, because I mean I
could use
have
that.
been turning down a lot of Caustic like live stream gigs, and that's been for 2 important reasons. One, I don't know if I could translate it the way I want to, and I'm not that picky even, but also I can't perform in my house because I swear too much. So I don't want to.
My kids might hear me yelling through the walls.
They'll definitely hear me. As much as I enjoy having a terrible mouth, we actually don't try to do that around our children. Which does not mean Daddy does not hit his head and scream "fuck" a whole bunch, but it does mean I don't want to do. I don't want to play white knucklehead fuck or lady business. And my daughter asked me what all those euphemisms are, because she apparently knows the word euphemisms at 7 years old. But yeah, so it'll be fun to get back on stage. I realize here and there that I miss playing live for people, and I miss seeing live shows. But I mean, it's been a nice opportunity to do new stuff and to adapt to a crazy ass world. So,
All right, this has been absolutely wonderful as always having Matt here.
thank you for inviting me to do this. And I'm glad we finally got to connect to do it after I was dumb the first couple times. So.
Matt has 2 albums, both Klack and Caustic, that you will see coming up, released on the Sounds and Shadows Top 20 Industrial EDM, EBM of the year. So look for those. Check those out. The links to his Bandcamp will be there. Thank you so much. And hopefully I will see you, sir, if not sooner, at Cold Waves.
At Cold Waves. It's my thing I do. So I hope to see everybody there. I hope to see you. And it'd be nice to see everybody in the flesh again. Yeah. Because it's been weird. but thanks for having me, guys. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for all thanks for not asking me the same questions I have to answer every single time too. It's nice to hear
we try original
questions. They really. I mean, when I used to do it. I mean, not to get too off topic, but when I used to do interviews for things like whatever magazines I was writing for, it was always more fun to come up with something that makes people talk about different stuff than the same old crap. So.
We just get drunk and gush to the people we love. So, like always,
used to do that too.
Everybody, keep it dark, yo. Coming up here, like we always do, I forgot about this. We will be playing the Caustic track off the succession of repetitive beats. My personal favorite. You will now hear Stale Semen, Shame, and Video Games. Bless.
Still semen, shame,